It's actually quite nice.
Oh, that bench is not...
It's not stable, no.
Hi. Hey, man.
This is a camping site, right?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah. Just here, or you know?
I think you can kind of go anywhere like around wherever there's like a bit of clearing, and then I think there was like an upper section towards the toilet as well.
All right.
Yeah.
Just for the toilet.
Yeah, so around the toilet and like around here as well.
Yeah,
Alright.
this is
Yeah.
a lower section here and there's another section up there,
apologize.
so...
Yeah.
Thanks. Man.
No worries, dude.
Tired, we ran a long way.
about Kira. This is run by AMSA, the Australian Maritime Safety Authority. They run the lighthouse completely independently. So they only come out every second year, which is quite cool. So they're about 19 metres high at the moment. You guys keep an eye on the water. Say it'd be a good day to spot some seals. Usually on like the days like today is when we tend to spot them. September and April are the best times for whales.
Yeah, that's cool.
How many you've seen?
I haven't seen any.
Yeah, that's dramatic in the moment. There you go. This is good, man. Thank you, Lord, for this food. Oh, yeah, true.
Amen.
Amen. I've done it every other time. Completely spilled my hungry.
Bob. winner goes first.
Is that how it works? I'll take $1 million.
1 mil.
1 mil.
There you go.
That's exciting because I'm going to play another rent card and ask another $1 million.
I'm reluctant to give you that.
Yeah, that's fair. Very likely I can use that early on. And now I have my turn.
Welcome back. That was Wilsons Prom National Park. A 48k hike, give or take. Maybe add a few extra k's for the walking back and forth. In this particular trip, I took with me about 11 kilos of pack weight. That was just my base weight before I accounted for any food or water that I brought as well. This was a 3-day trip, 2 nights, with my good friend Tom, who I'm sure you are now quite well acquainted with. He was a really great addition to this trip. If you want to see more of Tom, just stick around till the end. Yeah, you won't want to miss that. So I figured I'd give you a bit of a run through of the trip and a bit of an itinerary, I suppose you could say, and the kind of things that we got up to, as well as some things I might recommend or what you might see along the way, what you should come expecting. So to begin with, we drove from Bendigo, my hometown, about 5, maybe 6 hours, all the way across to Wilsons Prom and down. Quite a long way for a trip. I don't think I've ever driven that far just to go for a big long walk, but it was well worth the drive. Mind you, 6 hours there and 6 hours back. So certainly not for the faint of heart. Once we arrived at Wilsons Prom, we parked at the overnight hikers car park. We then got lunch at the visitors center in Tidal River, which is essentially like the caravan, like 4-wheel drive camping area. So lunch, we checked in at the visitors center. They gave us a map. They also told us any specific information we might need about our trip, like what tracks were closed. So in this particular case, there were 2 main tracks closed. 2 tracks that I really wish we could have taken, to be honest, because they're quite scenic and they're not quite as long and difficult as some of the tracks that we did this time round. So I'm definitely planning on going back again sometime soon to do like the official loop, because what we did was a bit of an unofficial kind of trek. Kind of just went straight down to the southernmost point and then up and back around again. When you finish checking in at the visitors center, they give you a parking permit for your car. You'll need one of those, otherwise you could get fined heaps of money. To actually start this particular walk, you need to take a shuttle to Telegraph Saddle, which is essentially the trailhead. So we hopped on the shuttle, which runs every half an hour from the visitors center, but it also makes stops along the way to the overnight hikers car park, which was fantastic. It meant we didn't have to walk all the way to the visitors center or from the visitors center back to the car at the end of the hike. It does take a break, I think, at lunchtime, so you'll just need to check the timetable at the visitors center. And from that point, we walked about 12, maybe 13 kilometers to the first campsite, which was the Roaring Meg campsite. This first stretch of the hike was mostly four-wheel drive tracks, quite wide. Heaps of people are able to pass each other on this track because it's actually quite busy, especially on the day we came back, which was a Saturday. We noticed heaps of people walking in to use the campsite. If there was an emergency, someone could come and pick you up. Parks Victoria use those tracks to maintain the campsites and keep them looking really great. All of the toilets were serviced, as in they were clean. They were drop toilets, mind you, so you need to bring your own toilet paper. I brought like a full roll for myself and for Tom, so definitely bring enough toilet paper to last you more than you might expect. The beginning of the first leg was actually like a really steep descent. It was almost 200 meters of elevation loss, if that makes sense. So quite steep going down, easy on the first day, not so easy on the way back because the loop actually found us coming straight back up this four-wheel drive track again. It's 200 meters of elevation gain. So along the way, you pass what was called the Halfway Hut, which is another campsite you can book on the Parks Victoria website. So we just stopped there for lunch, had a bit of a sight-see. There's a really cool historical hut, hence the name. So we followed the track all the way to Roaring Meg, which was our first campsite for the trip. And I have to say, it was one of the most beautiful sites I think I've ever stayed in. Heaps of lush green ferns, foliage, a beautiful creek running sort of down past our campsite. Really nice and cool, shaded. Overall, just a really well-kept, lovely campsite. The other thing I need to mention about the campsites on this trip was that you kind of need to bring everything that you're going to use in with you in your hike pack, but you also need to take everything out because there aren't any bins. The campsites were also booked in advance. I think we booked at least a month in advance, and even then, some of the campsites were fully booked on the days that we actually wanted to visit. So be sure to book at least a month and a half in advance, I think is probably the way to go. The campsites are about $7.20 Australian per head per night. And we also took dehydrated meals, which can also bump the cost of the hike up. But they're really great because they're lightweight. You don't really have to worry so much about water on this trip because of the creeks that run by just about every campsite. As long as you've stocked up your water every day, like filled maybe a bottle or two, or maybe a bottle and a bladder. I think I took a 1 liter bottle on this particular trip, and that should get you all the way through to any checkpoints or campsites that you pass or choose to camp at for the night. I also took a couple of snacks, things like muesli bars, protein bars, nuts, trail mix, 2-minute noodles, just for a bit of comfort as well, which was quite nice after a long day of leg work. So after dinner that day, we decided to head down to the southernmost point of mainland Australia, which was pretty cool. I never thought I'd get the chance to do that. So it's about a 6-kilometer round trip to get from Roaring Meg to the southernmost point, which is also a conservation area too. You can't actually get all the way to the southernmost point and touch the very tip and the water right there, but you can still sort of hop down to the rock pools and have a bit of a play around there. So altogether, I think we hiked nearly 19 Ks that day, if you include the southernmost point at the end. Which brings us to day 2. Day 2 was much more like a proper bush hike. Plenty of overgrown sections and thin sort of meandering trails, lots of up and down with a few more sights to see, plenty more ocean as you kind of head down past the southernmost point towards the Wilsons Prom lighthouse. The lighthouse itself is actually quite a steep climb. So what we did was we left our pack sort of near the base and we just took our lunch up with us. Parks Victoria had a couple of staff up there. The 2 guys that looked after us were really awesome, like super knowledgeable, super friendly. They gave us a free tour of the lighthouse as well as allowed us free entry into the museum. We hadn't planned to be at the lighthouse for very long, or even at all. I think after calculating it, we spent at least 3 hours at the lighthouse, which is a long time, especially given that we'd hoped to make it to Refuge Cove that night, which was going to be like almost 20 k's from Roaring Meg, so quite a long way to go. So anyway, we kept on walking through this bush track on our way to Little Waterloo Bay, which turned out to be our campsite for the night. I think it was just getting way too dark. We were getting hungry, so we kind of did the cheeky thing and stayed the night at Little Waterloo Bay, which we hadn't booked. So avoid doing that if you can. We still paid for Refuge Cove, but we didn't stay there in the end. So we figured it would be okay. We had quite a refreshing, quite freezing, adrenaline-inducing swim at Little Waterloo Bay, the beach there, which is quite a pretty spot. On our way back into our camp, we met a wombat, I assume the resident campsite wombat, who we named Bob. Very cute. Also made us very wary of our food and how we stored our food overnight. So what we did in the end was we hung our bag, which had our rubbish and food, up in a tree. That way the wombats and any other wildlife couldn't rummage through our gear and damage our equipment. So altogether, day 2 was about, I think, 18 k's, give or take. Which brings us to day 3, which was the last day of the trip. About 12 kilometers. That morning we got up at about 5:30 for the sunrise. We also got to relax a bit, play some Monopoly Deal. Tom was very intent on becoming a Monopoly Deal champion, so I let him win a couple times. The hike along Waterloo Bay walking track back to Telegraph Saddle was a really nice walk because it was mostly boardwalk with the occasional bush track, bit of up and down, passing a few people along the way. It was probably the most popular track that we walked this trip. Really great for sore legs. Awesome if you want to head back that way on your last day. The only downside would be the uphill 200-meter ascent at the end up to Telegraph Saddle car park. So by the time we got back to the shuttle, our completed mission was celebrated by a group of young guys partying in the back of this bus. It was hilarious. Yeah, they were having a great time, clearly. I just want to give a big thanks to a couple of people that made this hike possible. First of all, my physio, Brody, was awesome. He helped me rehabilitate my legs with some foam rolling exercises and some stretches. Wouldn't have been able to do this without him. I think we covered more than double the ground that I covered on the Baritmo walk. So thanks, Brody, for that, if you watch this. I also want to thank Tom. Big thanks to Tom for coming along on this trip with me. We certainly made memories for a lifetime that he'll be able to show his kids. I'll be able to potentially show my kids one day. Certainly great to look back on. So thanks, Tom. I know you're watching this as well. You're amazing. Can't wait for the next one, mate. It was just so fun. Yeah, I would highly recommend doing any Wilsons Prom hike. If you're looking for a nice, easy trip, maybe like an overnighter with a beach, some swimming, that kind of thing, I would just do the Telegraph Saddle straight to Little Waterloo Bay and back. Just do an out and back trip. It's only 12 k's there, 12 k's back. You don't have to take heaps with you. You could probably take a day pack with a little tent or something like that. You could almost do it all in one day if you wanted to kind of smash it out, get a beach trip in. I'd also suggest running all trails in aeroplane mode, which is what we did for this trip, which is great because not only can you track your overall trip and show it and share it with other people, you also get offline maps if you pay for their subscription, which is quite cheap. I think I managed to get 3 years for about $60. It also helps motivate me when I'm struggling through a particular section because I can see how far I've come, I can see how far is left, and All Trails also uses your pace through GPS to track sort of how much time is left, how much longer you might have to walk. So it's really good at keeping your head up and keeping you on track as well. So definitely check out All Trails. I've got maps from this particular trip as well as other trips in my link tree in the description. You'll be able to see my activity, you'll be able to see the kilometers we did. My current gear list is also on link tree. So be sure to check that out, as well as a couple of other cool links, couple of socials and things down in the description for you to explore at your own pace. So yeah, that was Wilson's Prom, January 2023. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this one as much as we did. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Rap for us. Shamalama, 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 shamalama.
That's good. Colonel's calling. I want cat.
Okay, let's go.
Back up from there.
Yeah.